So, hi everyone, my name is Maya and we are here with another career Q&A and we are interviewing Karen today. And so I'm just going to pass it right off to Karen, who is going to talk about her profession in supporting immigrant communities. So Karen, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, hi everyone. So my name is Karen Diaz. I'm CHIRLA's Statewide Civic Engagement Organizer. I've been at CHIRLA since last September. And my role is under the Civic Engagement Department. We do a lot of different campaigns. I work for CHIRLA C3, which is like the part of CHIRLA that does a lot of like the advocacy for the community education piece. But I also work for CHIRLA Action Fund, which is CHIRLA's sister part, and that's the one where we do a lot of the civic engagement work, where we like go out into the community, knock on doors. We also do phone banking. We're actually sitting at the phone banking center right now. There's around 50 stations. So year round, we work around on political campaigns, whether that be talking to voters about like a local election for the city council, or talking to local voters about like the LAUSD race that we just recently had in this region. We also talk to voters about the SC33. And you know, we're going to be starting working on a measure campaign pretty soon, so that's what I'm going to be working on. So that's just a little bit of what I do on my day-to-day basis.
Can you tell us what CHIRLA stands for and what your organization stands for?
Yeah, so CHIRLA stands for the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights. So our mission statement is to advocate for a full inclusion of the immigrant community into the society and full immigrant rights. And that includes fighting for family unity, workers' rights, refugees, for them to be able to seek a refuge and feel safe. So that's like a little bit of what we're fighting for. And what that means is like some of the things that we have been able to accomplish with the organization is that they were the ones leading the fight for the driver licenses push. So they did a lot of community advocacy, where they went into the communities, found like where our voters were, or like our immigrant communities, and they asked them if they needed this and why this would make such an impact in their life. And then these people became leaders in their community, went to Sacramento and shared their personal stories. And it was a long fought battle for many years, but at the end of 2011, they were able to accomplish this. And now people like myself, before I was a DACA recipient, was able to benefit from this. People like my parents were able to benefit from this. And so many other people in the community that I work with day in and day out were able to benefit from the fights and the work that CHIRLA has been doing for the past 20 years.
Thank you. What is the level of interaction that you have with communities and families? You kind of gave us a little bit of a hint, but working one-on-one with people, with families, kind of, what is your impact on those folks?
So my day in and day out, I'm out in the field most of the time. It's a very rare day for me when I'm sitting in the office like today. For example, my day yesterday, I started it and I went and did a community presentation about, you know, workers' rights and what CHIRLA stands for at a citizenship class in the morning in Huntington Park. Came to the office for a couple of hours and for like a meeting that we talk about our campaigns and our long-term goals. And after that, I drove to Orange County, to Lake Forest, and I was canvassing with my coworker for around 2 to 3 hours. And in the community, just talking to voters. We didn't even know what we were gonna find. We went to a trailer park and we just knocked on families' doors and told them what CHIRLA was doing, that we were looking forward to opening an office in the region pretty soon, that we're going to be offering legal service, community education, and asking them what their needs are so we can better serve them when we open that office. So I'm out in the community really often. I'm meeting with like parents at the schools. I'm meeting with the students out in the community. If somebody gives me a call and tells me that they are like in need of like finding out their rights or finding out about legal services, I usually just like try to set up a call with them or meet up with them in person at their houses, at the local coffee shops. So a lot of my time is spent out in the community.
Great, thank you. I find that many of the folks that I work with at UCSB, especially the college students, struggle with what even positions are out there in the world, especially in the field that you are in. So how did you get involved in the work that you do, and including how did you discover that this was even a possibility?
I actually kind of landed in my position by accident. while I was studying at UC Davis, I'm a graduate from that school, I was studying political science, and I knew that I wanted to go into the law pathway. So I wanted to be an immigration lawyer. That was kind of like the path that I had set for myself. But along the way, being an immigrant kid, I realized that I didn't have the grades that I needed, the internships that I needed. So when it came time for applying to law school, and like I didn't have the right grades, so then I decided to look into different opportunities for myself. So then I started looking for internships, and in my last quarter at Davis, I interned at 2 different campaigns. I was at Darrell Steinberg's campaign. He's the new Sacramento mayor, and I was working there, and I put like 20 to 35 hours a week in that campaign. And I was working a different Metro campaign in my local community in Davis to like give more housing opportunities for students, just because it's very limited out there. And I was putting another 25 hours there while also going to school full time and like working as well, and being involved in a lot of different things. And I just really like what I was doing. I like the feel of like talking to the community members, but I also crave more opportunities to talk to my Latino community and talk to people of color. And I just made a decision in the moment that I was going to continue doing this work. So I think the easiest way for me to do the job that I found was to doing internships with like doing either paid canvasser positions, paid phone banking positions, and eventually they'll recommend you for roles like working with the Democratic Party or nonprofit organizations doing organizing. And I didn't know anything about organizing. I mean, I didn't know how to recruit a volunteer. I didn't know how to work with the community. And I just learned by doing the work that I was doing. And I had a lot of mentors along the way that kind of like followed up with me, and they helped me get new positions. So I think the best recommendation that I will give to students who are looking to get into like the careers that I'm doing is like, do internships with like, or volunteer at campaigns. That's like a really good way to get started. There's like a lot of jobs usually around the times of November. There's a lot of special elections. It just really depends how like what community and what candidate you're willing to work for, and if they stand for your values. And if you're like really good at what you're doing and you're putting a lot of effort, usually like the people that are like me at this positions level right now, they'll take a lot of interest in you, and they'll want to develop you and give you future callbacks for future job opportunities, whether it's at the organization that I'm working on right now, or like past jobs that I held with different mentors that are looking for new young people to like get started in these positions. I know that the Democratic Party has a lot of opportunities open all the time. CHIRLA always has openings. Like we're looking to hire 14 paid canvassers pretty soon for our measure campaign. Like I said, the Fund Banking Center is running like year round with like different campaigns that we have throughout. So it's just like looking for those opportunities, and you guys can always feel free to like follow up with me on those.
Is going to law school or being an immigration lawyer still on your radar at all, or are you kind of moved on from that?
I think it's still in the back of my mind, but as of right now, I really enjoy what I'm doing. I think I'm might be looking more into like getting my nonprofit management master's, but I'm also getting a lot of leadership opportunities and opportunities to growth. Next week, my boss is sending me and my coworker to a management training in Washington, D.C. for people of color.
Wow.
I've only been at the organization a little less than a year, so I think the fact that the organization is taking a lot of interest in my growth and development, it's making me really happy, and I'm really excited to see where like this career path goes.
Yeah, congratulations. What are some other areas where students or any folks watching this can learn more about supporting communities? So you talked a lot about organizing and kind of working for nonprofits. Immigration law is one of them. What are some other areas that your colleagues might be working in that are other considerations?
Yeah, so because our organization is so big, our nonprofit has so many different departments. We have a community education department where they just go out into the community and just do presentations. So it's not about organizing, it's just about educating the community on like public charge, know your rights. We also have the communication department. So a lot of what they do is like the social media, you know, when we go live on videos, they capture the pictures, they capture the story. They write the press releases, press advisories, they communicate with the media. So a lot of media driven. We also have I work for the Civic Engagement Department, so a lot of what I do is more like talking to the voters, but we also have an organizing department that works with like community advocacy and community outreach and We also have an advocacy department, which is they do a lot of the policy background. So they research like the legislators at the local, state, and national level. We have coworkers that are based out of the Los Angeles office. There's people that are based out of the Sacramento office doing policy. There's people that are like right now based out of Washington, D.C. doing policy and advocacy there. So there's a lot of different opportunities. We also have our legal department. You don't need to have a legal degree to work there. There's like people that are doing like DACA, they fill in DACA applications, and they do like a lot of their research background before the lawyers look into it. So I think that's just like the different departments. There's also the administration department within our organization. We wouldn't be running without them. Right. So that's just within like our nonprofit organization. And I'm sure that if you look into different like fields, like maybe with the Democratic Party, there's also like the policy director and like a lot of other things.
Wow, thank you. So you said you went to UC Davis, so you are a UC alum. What was your college major while you were there, and how does your major and any activities that you were part of at UC Davis connect to what you do now?
So while I was at UC Davis, I studied political science, and I also double major in communications. So I have two bachelors. And while I was at UC Davis, I was part of the pre-law fraternity, Phi Alpha Delta, while I was in campus. I mean, I was bound to be pre-law, and I knew all the background into pre-law, and it was just really helpful for me to be part of that, because I discovered that like maybe this wasn't the pathway for me, and like a lot of students went into a lot of different like career fields, and I'm still in contact with them. I think a lot of what I do, it's really related to the political science background. I mean, I really love politics, and it's really important for me to be updated on all the policy and to know like how different countries work. A lot of the classes that I took were comparative politics. So I know how like the different governments work, like their constitution, how like they have like Congress, and like how some governments have like unilateral and like some have prime ministers. I feel like that really relates, because it's really important for me to like see when I'm meeting the community, a lot of people who come from different communities with different governments, and it helps to understand people who are like from refugee backgrounds and from like immigrant backgrounds. So that's just like a little bit of what I studied.
Thank you. Sounds like you have kind of a global approach to what you do, so you really can empathize with folks when you know where they came from, because you know the political history there. How does communication fit in?
So I haven't been able to use my communications degree as much, but before taking this job, I was doing political, I was working like kind of like creating the emails. So I don't know if you guys ever signed up for an email listserv, and it tells you, this is a really important campaign, we need you to contribute now. This is how you can pitch in $5. I was working in like writing those emails and doing like the HTML behind it, and like doing like making sure that everything worked and sending out those emails. And it was for progressive candidates and progressive nonprofits. So I was using a little bit of like my communication background on that. I also, when I worked for the California Democratic Party, I had like a regional role in which I kind of had to do everything that like a campaign would do. I was like the communications person, I was the policy person, I was like the organizer person. So I would send out press whenever we would have a rally. I would communicate with the press people, I would write the advisories, I would take pictures, I would tweet out. So like I was doing a lot of that, but I felt like it was really important to me to know like what are key phrases and what are key things to say to get the media's attention, and how to make it to the news. Because it doesn't matter if you do like organizing if it doesn't get out into the world, and nobody will know what you're doing.
So it sure sounds like you were using your communication degree. So you mentioned, so you've been in your position, you said, for 8 or 9 months. And what have you done before this? So Democratic Party, working for a progressive nonprofit, what else?
So right after I finished my final Davis, I started my first campaign, and I was working in Congressman Bera's re-election race. I was a field organizer. That was about a 3-month position. We got him reelected for the 3rd time. He's based out of the Elk Grove area. After that, I jumped on my second campaign, which my previous manager reached out to me, and I was part of the Marching to 18 program, which we were doing an accountability campaign against Jeff Denham. He was the former congressman out of the area of Modesto. Now we have Josh Harder. So we did a lot of like coalition building, like I was saying, like a lot of the media. So just to hold him accountable because he wasn't working for the community in the area. After working that with a coworker, they decided that they wanted to send me to a different area, and I advocated to go back to my hometown, which is Palmdale, Lancaster, and Santa Clarita area, where we had Congressman Steve Knight. They weren't going to send anyone there, but I really wanted them to like hold him accountable. He only won his race by 5%, and I wanted him to work for my community, which is a lot of Latinos, and like he wasn't standing behind DACA recipients, and he was a really critical vote. So I did an accountability campaign for him, and while I was working in that accountability campaign as a director of the region, I met a candidate that was running against him, and I jumped on his primary and I became his field director. I worked on that for about a year, and his primary ended last June. He didn't make it by 1%, so that was a really tough loss. And then that's when I jumped on the I was working temporarily doing the email program, but I found out that CHIRLA had an opening position, so that's why I was like, I'm gonna apply to CHIRLA. This is like my dream organization to work with. I wanna work with immigrant communities. It's near my community. I'm gonna be doing a lot of work in the area. I continued working to defeat Congressman Steve Knight, whose values didn't represent me in my community. I was able to also elect another progressive Democrat out of the Orange County area with Gil Cisneros. We also were working against, in the Central Valley, we got elected TJ Cox. So we were doing a lot of good work, and my career path was just like one campaign right after another. It's just like I might have like a couple of weeks in between campaigns, but I was able to get all those positions just by like building relationships with the people that I had previously worked with. And you know, once you build a relationship with someone in this campaign, well, it's a really, really small world, so everyone kind of just knows each other. Like my manager for like my field director campaign with Brian Caforio, when I was there, knew my first employers with Barra's campaign. So everyone just knows each other, and if you're doing really good work, they'll continue recommending you, and you'll have like a lot of jobs to do.
So networking for you has really been amazing, and anyone else I've talked to also. So I think students really can pick up on that message that when you're passionate, when you're doing a good job, people will notice it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow. So you mentioned, networking, being passionate. What are some other skills that make you a really great fit for this field and that you can share that other students might be able to develop?
I think what's something that has been really important to me is loving the job that I'm doing. I think that there might be in positions where like I wasn't really loving what I was doing, and recognizing that this position wasn't a good fit for me. Like while I was working in San Francisco doing the email program, I thought that was like my dream job to work in San Francisco. And just realizing that when something is not right for you, that you should look for something else. And I think that was something really hard to come out, because like, you know, as a recent graduate, I just graduated in 2016. Sometimes you just kind of tell yourself, oh, this might be like good for me, I can stick it out for a while. But realizing that sometimes you don't have to stick things for a while, and that you are the best. You are best at recognizing what you're gonna go do. So I think it's really important to love what you're doing, and I think that's why I'm able to like put in a lot of work into my daily work. Yesterday I had a 12-hour day, and sometimes I have 15-hour days, and sometimes it's like 3 consecutive days like that. And like if I didn't love what I was doing and I didn't feel like this was a job, I feel like I would do this for free. I done this for free. Then you're not going to be very successful at what you're doing, and people are going to notice that you are not the right fit for the job.
Thank you. What advice do you have for college students, similar to where you were a few years ago, thinking about law, thinking about wanting to support, you know, the communities that you came from, but maybe venturing outside of law? What advice do you have to try things on? I mean, you kind of mentioned, you know, getting volunteer experience, interning, but anything else that you might offer as advice?
I think what really helped for me was like maybe taking a year off. I think a lot of my colleagues who have gone into law, even when they weren't sure if they were going to do it, they took a year off between like finishing undergrad and going to law school. They were still studying for their LSAT. They were still trying to keep up a good GPA. but they weren't sure if this was like the right fit for them. So they took a gap year or 2 gap years where they were doing other type of work, whether they were like volunteering at a law firm or like doing work part-time at a law firm. They were like volunteering at a like nonprofit organization. And some of them ended up just not liking what they were doing when they were like doing like the organizing department or working on policy, and they decided that like law was like the right thing for them to do. So then they like had a fly in and they went into the law field. Now some friends that are like right now 1Ls at like different law schools, and I know some other friends that just completely have written off the opportunity and they went into doing finance careers and doing different pathways, because you know to go to law school you don't need to have a political science degree, which a lot of students think that you do, especially when they're first years or second years. That's why it was like one of the misconceptions that I had as well, being a first generation student. So I think just trying different things out before committing to law school, because it's a really big commitment, it's a big financial investment, and if you are not doing it for the right reasons, then you're likely not going to finish the degree. So I think it's like that's been the best advice that anyone has given me for law school, is like you have to be absolutely sure that you want to pursue this degree and that this is the one thing that you really want to do, because you put a lot of hours into getting that degree.
Yeah, I don't think I could have said it better. So thank you. And you mentioned earlier that if you were to get another degree, it might be a master's in nonprofit administration or management.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And how long might you wait before you think about getting that?
I was thinking of going into doing it this year, actually. And I started the application process, but I paused because I mean, I have a lot of student loans that I have to pay off. Yeah. And it just didn't seem like the right time this year. I think I might wait like another year before I go into it. I think I decided that I want to go into this management training first and do a lot of other development that they're doing with me at the organization. Like I'm going through a curriculum that the organization has. And I'm going to see if this is like really the path that I want to set for myself long term, or whether like I want to go into something else. So that's why I think like 2 to 3 years. I gave myself, when I graduated from my undergraduate degree, I told myself, you have 2 to 3 years where you're gonna like go explore what other options you want to do aside from law school. And after 3 years, you're gonna decide whether you're gonna go back to your like law degree or whether you're gonna go into your master's. So that's like kind of like the thing that I set for myself. So I'm gonna start studying probably for my master's degree and just filling it out, because I'm really serious about what I want to do, and just setting this like really hard deadlines for yourself and see what you accomplish. I think it's the best way that you can like get to where you need to get, and don't forget and keep that in mind.
It sounds like there's a lot of opportunities for folks who have right out of undergraduate studies to work in supporting immigrant communities. And is it unique to your organization that they provide so much professional development, or do you find that also popular in other nonprofits and non-governmental agencies?
I think there's also other non-governmental agencies. Like, for example, I have a friend that graduated a year before me. She did 1 year working at just doing accounting, like an organization in Sacramento, and then after that she quit her job and decided to move to Palo Alto, and now she's working at Stanford. And at her job in Stanford, they said that they got in a lot of developmental opportunities. Like each 6 months, they give her about like the equivalent of taking 2 classes, or like getting her master's, or just doing any like recreational classes. They also provide her with a lot of one-day trainings and support for that. So I don't think it's just like a straight to like the nonprofit and like immigrant community organizations. I think that a lot of different organizations are really invested in like young recent graduates, and if they are hard workers and you ask for it. I think that's one thing that I didn't realize when I was like just recently graduating, that asking for the things that I want and feeling like I deserve to get this training. If my boss sees something in me and I ask for it, then I deserve it. And like you realize that you deserve this training. I think a lot of us are waiting a couple of years. They're like, oh, in 5 years, maybe I'll have like that like senior level experience that I need. And then I can ask for this training. Then I can be worthy of like spending my organization's money. but it's like, no, you deserve this training, and this is going to help your organization in the long run. And then you can bring this training back to other employees at the organization and start preparing them to take on those leadership roles so the organization can continue to grow.
Thank you. It sounds like it's important for people, young people, to feel empowered and to ask what they want and really seek that additional education, because it won't just end with them. It will keep prospering.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Do you have any other advice that you'd like to share? I know you'll be sharing it in person with us soon, but anything else that you would like folks to know as they look into entering the field similar to yours?
Yeah, I think a lot of the advice that I would have is especially for like first generation students. I know I was really excited going into college, and I didn't realize that there was a lot of other smarter people, and maybe some people that were smarter than me, but realizing that if you do put a lot of work and reaching out for resources while you're still an undergrad, that's really important. I didn't get to take full advantage of all the resources that my school had. They was out a lot of clubs, organizations, tutoring resources, and they also had like a lot of opportunities just like this one, where they like bring experts and people who are like already graduated in the field, and they want to help young undergrads. But I was really afraid to ask questions because they just seemed like they were at a completely different level, and they wouldn't want to help someone like me. And when in reality, when I'm in this position now, all I want to do is I want to mentor other students, and I want them to like ask questions and feel like they are empowered. So I think what I would say to like first generation students is like ask questions, take advantage of the resources. I'm continuously telling this to my younger siblings. I still have one sibling that's finishing his undergraduate degree at Davis. He followed into like my footsteps and went to my school, and I tell him all the time, I'm like, take classes, ask for help. If you don't know something, ask me. I already been through the same things that you have been. I know where like all the different buildings are. Don't be afraid to ask where like the different buildings are. Just because other students know where all of these things are, and they're like at a different pathway that you are, and they're like already have 2 to 3 internships as a freshmen or sophomores, doesn't mean that you need to be comparing yourself to them. This is like your own career path, and it's never too late to ask for help and continue growing.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Well, Karen, I won't take any more of your time. You are obviously a very busy person, but thank you for your advice and just empowerment, and a reminder to students that don't be afraid to use your services. Don't be afraid to ask tough questions, because there are people who are very able and willing to help. Mm-hmm. And I think it's easy for students to get afraid that, like you said, that they're not going to be able to help me, or they don't want to, but they're just like you. They do want to help. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.